Hello, welcome to First Chapter Friday. I am presenting today a biography, and it's about the author Kehret, and it is Small Steps, the year I got polio. So she is a young woman at the time of the story. She's only 12 years old, like most of our students or close to their age at our school. So considering how bad the disease is and how it was a vaccine that helped her and many others get better or not get the disease, I think it's pretty current for a topic, even though the majority of this book occurs in the 1940s and 50s. Prologue. Before a polio vaccine was developed, polio killed or crippled thousands of people each year. A president of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, got polio as a young father. He spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair using hip-high leg braces and a cane when he needed to stand to make a speech. Children, however, are more likely to get polio than adults are. It is a highly contagious disease, and in 1949, there were 42,000 cases reported in the United States. There was only one case diagnosed that year in Austin, Minnesota. A 12-year-old girl, Peg Schultz. Me. The disease's full name is poliomyelitis, or infantile paralysis, but it's usually called polio. The polio virus attacks the nerve cells which control the muscles of the body. If damage to the nerve cells is slight, the muscles weaken and it'll be temporary. If the virus kills many nerve cells, paralysis will be extensive and possibly permanent. There is no cure for polio. There are no miracle medicines to stop the damage to nerve cells or repair those already damaged. When I began to write about my polio days, long-forgotten memories bubbled up to the surface. I was astonished by the intense emotions these memories brought with them. Those months, more than any other time of my life, molded my personality. Since I have no transcripts of these events, the dialogue is not strictly accurate, but the people mentioned are all real people. The incidents all happened, and the voices are as close to reality as I can make them. Although I use fictional techniques to write this book, I can verify my feelings about everything that happened, and feelings are the most important part of any story. Chapter 1, The Diagnosis. My ordeal began on a Friday, early in September. In school that morning, I glanced at the clock often, eager for the homecoming parade at 4 o'clock. As a 7th grader, it was my first chance to take part in a homecoming fun. For a week, my friends and I had spent every spare moment working on 7th grade float, and we were sure it would win the first prize. My last class before lunch was chorus. I love to sing, and we were practicing a song whose lyrics are the inscription on the Statue of Liberty. Usually the words, "Give me your tired, your poor," brought goosebumps to my arms. But on homecoming day, I was distracted by a twitching muscle in my left thigh. As I sang, a section of my blue skirt popped up and down, as if jumping beans lived in my leg. I pressed my hand against my thigh, trying to make the muscle be still, but it leaped and jerked beneath my fingers. I stretched my leg forward and rotated the ankle. Twitch, twitch. Next, I tightened my leg muscles for a few seconds and relaxed them. Nothing helped. The bell rang. When I started toward my locker, my legs buckled as if I had nothing but cotton inside my skin. I collapsed, scattering my books on the floor. Someone yelled, "Peg fainted!" But I knew I had not fainted because my eyes stayed open and I was conscious. I sat on the floor for a moment while my classmates collected my books. "Are you all right?" my friend Karen asked as she helped me stand up. "Yeah, I don't know what happened." "You look pale." "I'm fine," I insisted. "Really." I put my books in my locker and I went home for lunch as I did every day. 2 days earlier, I had gotten a sore throat and headache. Now I also felt weak, and my back hurt. What rotten timing, I thought, to get sick on homecoming day. Although my legs felt wobbly, I walked the 12 blocks home. I didn't tell my mother about the fall or about my headache and the other problems because I knew she would make me stay home and I didn't want to miss the parade. I was glad to sit down to eat. Maybe I thought I should have not stayed up so late the night before, or maybe I'm just hungry. As soon as I eat, I won't feel so weak. When I reached for my glass of milk, my hand shook. It shook so hard I couldn't pick up the glass. I grasped it with both hands. They trembled so badly that the milk sloshed over the side. Mother put her hand on my forehead. "You feel hot," she said. "You're going straight to bed." It was a relief to lie down. I wondered why my back hurt. I hadn't lifted anything heavy. I couldn't imagine why I was so tired either. I felt as if I had not slept in days. I fell asleep right away, and I woke 3 hours later with a stiff neck. My back hurt even more than it had earlier, and now my legs ached as well. Several times I had painful muscle spasms in my legs and toes. The muscles tightened until my knees bent and my toes curled, and I was unable to straighten my legs or toes until the spasms gradually passed. I looked at the clock. The homecoming parade started in 15 minutes. "I want to go to the parade," I said. Mother stuck a thermometer in my mouth and said, 102, and called the doctor. The 7th grade float would have to win first place without me. I went back to sleep. Dr. Wright came, took my temperature, listened to my breathing, and talked with Mother. Mother sponged my forehead with a cold cloth. I dozed, I woke, and slept again. At midnight, I began to vomit. Mother and Dad helped me to the bathroom. We all assumed I just had the flu. Dr. Wright returned before breakfast the next morning and took my temperature again. Still 102. He helped me sit up with my feet dangling over the side of the bed. He tapped my knees with his rubber mallet. This was supposed to make my legs jerk, but they didn't. They hung limp and unresponsive. I was too woozy from pain and fever to care. He ran his fingernail across the bottom of my foot from the heel to the toes. It felt awful, but I couldn't pull my foot away. He did the same on the other foot with the same effect. I wished he would just leave me alone so I could sleep. "I need to do a spinal tap on her," he told my parents. "Can you take her to the hospital right away?" Dad helped me out of my bed. I was too sick to get dressed. At the hospital, I lay on my side while Dr. Wright inserted a needle into my spinal column and withdrew some liquid. Although it didn't take long, it was painful. The laboratory analyzed the fluid immediately. When Dr. Wright got the results, he asked my parents to go into another room. While I dozed again, he told them the diagnosis, and they returned alone to tell me. Mother held my hand. "You have polio," Dad said, as he stroked my hair back from my forehead. "You will need to go to a special hospital for polio patients in Minneapolis." Polio? Panic shot through me and I began to cry. I had seen Life magazine pictures of polio patients in wheelchairs or wearing heavy iron leg braces. Each year, the March of Dimes, which raised money to aid polio patients and fund research, printed a poster featuring a child in a wheelchair or wearing leg braces or using walking sticks. The posters hung in stores, schools, and libraries, frequent reminders of the terrible and lasting effects of polio. Everyone was afraid of polio. Since the epidemics usually happened in warm weather, children were kept away from swimming pools and other crowded public places every summer because parents didn't want them exposed to the virus. How could I have polio? I didn't know anyone who had the disease. Where did the virus come from? How did it get in my body? I didn't want to have polio. I didn't want to leave my family and go to a hospital 100 miles from home. As we drove home to pack, I sat slumped in the back seat. How long will I have to stay in the hospital? I asked. Until you're well, Mother said. I caught the look of dread and uncertainty that passed between my parents. It might be weeks or months or even years before I came home. It might be never. People sometimes died from polio. That fear, unspoken, settled over us like a blanket, smothering future conversation. When we got home, I was not allowed to leave the car or even say goodbye to Grandpa, who lived with us, or to BJ, my dog. We couldn't take the chance of spreading the deadly disease. Our orders were strict. I must contaminate no one. Karen called, Mother said when she returned with the suitcase. The 7th grade float won second prize. I was too sick and frightened to care. Grandpa waved at me through the car window, tears glistening on his cheeks. I'd never seen my grandfather cry. Later that morning, I walked into the isolation ward of the Sheltering Arms Hospital in Minneapolis and went to bed in a private room. No one was allowed in except the doctors and nurses, and they wore masks. My parents stood outside the grass, waving bravely and blowing kisses through the window. Exhausted, feverish, and scared, I fell asleep. When I woke up, I was paralyzed. So that was chapter 1. I will tell you about some of the books that this author wrote, probably because she had all sorts of imagination that she had to use in order to get through the difficulty of living paralyzed. And I hope you check them out and support her. And I hope that you continue this story to see the true events of polio disease and its effects on the young. All right. Have a great week. Happy Friday. That's chapter 1. I'll tell you a little bit more. That was cute. That's going to be on YouTube. I'll have to cut it.